I went back a little ways. I was watching trying to catch up on some of the meetings, and I ran into this woman, Pamela Palmater or something like that. And I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but what an experience it was listening to her testimony. Why don't you just tell us who she is, briefly, and then we're going to look at a clip from her appearance at SecD that is supposed to be contributing to Bill C-21, and then we'll comment on that after. Who is this Pamela Palmater or Palmater or something?
Well, she's an Indigenous activist and lawyer from the East Coast, from New Brunswick, and very outspoken. And she's got lots to say.
Oh, that was very brief. But anyway, check out this clip from some of her testimony. I don't know if we have time for 2 clips, but we might. But anyway, check this clip out and we'll come back.
And we all know that guns are the weapon of choice, especially guns that can have multiple rounds at a time, automatic, semi-automatic, and that causes mass casualties at schools, universities, churches, and various other killing sprees, not unlike the Mass Casualty Commission in Nova Scotia. Sadly, we also have the highest level of online extremism in the world. So that should be a particular concern when it comes to the link between online extremism, the white hate groups, and gun violence, and their close connection to the gun lobby can't be understated in terms of the amount of resources they have access to. They're able to go to court and challenge all of these things, whereas victims of violence often don't.
So there's a lot there. And, people and their testimony like this stuff is a problem. It's been a problem in Canada probably for the last 20 years, and it's just ramping up like crazy. But, the first thing, it's such worthless testimony, but it might end up costing somebody some money. But the first thing you can see she clearly has no idea about the firearm issue, because she's like, and these guns that shoot multiple rounds at a time. She even almost kind of chuckles to herself because she knows she's completely clueless when it comes to the actual practical implications of the bill or whatever. I think it's just, and the firearms it's regulated, she hasn't got a clue, clearly. But then she gets into the rest of it.
I don't know. There's all kinds of people out there who say all kinds of things about us, and a lot of it is untrue or embellished. This is to me, it's horrific. And I don't understand how this is exactly why we need people to, be testifying under oath. Because I think if you had to put your hand on a Bible or whatever it is you subscribe to, I don't understand how anyone would be able to say such absolute garbage as this. Making a tie between online extremists, white hate groups, gun violence, and us, and somehow trying to tie in our court challenge in there. I don't know. Yeah, she should be accountable for the things she says.
Well, I think we may hold her accountable for that. And it's, it is like, I don't know, how do you even describe it, right? The most outrageous, ridiculous thing to say. And she's talking specifically about us because, because of our court challenge, because we were to be technical, there was a lot of groups that sued the government. To be technical, we're the only gun group that did. We're the only gun group that are actual applicants. But, to online extremists, white hate groups, a lot of our members and volunteers would be very shocked to find out that we're connected to white hate groups, because they're not white, by the way, and ties to gun violence, and the connection between all of those things we just talked about and the CCFR basically can't be understated. Like, that's what she said. Like, it's basically, we're the same people. We are those people, because the ties are so close. There's no way to overstate them. And I would really, really love to see one shred of evidence, even one kind of indicator, one hint of any of that. Like, these are rantings of someone who's completely disconnected from reality. And, and then the white hate groups have access and resources that we're giving them apparently so that they have access. They could sue the government through us. And when and you know, it's interesting if you listen to the language, because I played it back quite a few times, right? I was like, wow, who in their right mind would even say anything like this? But anyway, these are the types of people that we're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
But she said that these groups, the white hate groups and people that perpetrate gun violence and whatever it was, online extremists, have access to resources through the CCFR so that they can sue the government. Well, if they're suing the government, that means that they're the applicants. So I looked down the list of applicants,
is she calling
which
our
is
applicants
me,
those
by
things?
the way, as an individual, the CCFR, Wolverine Supplies, we have a whole list of applicants. And so those are the actual white hate group members, I guess, that have access to sue the government on behalf of the CCFR. Like we're suing a journalist right now for saying that we had deals in place, actual deals with Islamophobic groups with no evidence that any of that is true. And we're suing that person for defamation. And that person didn't say anywhere near what this is. And, you know, it's like we have, as an organization, I know I'm going on and on about it, but as an organization, we have so many other things to be doing rather than to teach completely blindly arrogant, low quality people that you can't just run around and say things so outrageous, so bombastic about people that you know nothing about and there be no consequences. Like, just amazing. Like, is that our role? I've said this before. Is that our role in life? Is to teach people that you don't run around and say things like this about people that aren't true, and just because you're trying to get attention because you need it so badly yourself? Like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be our role. We should be focused on, public safety education and working on legislation that makes us safe for Canada. And we can do all that. But yes, unfortunately, part of this fight, part of this debate is holding these people to account. You can't run around, run into the Senate like some kind of expert on a topic you know absolutely nothing about, light your hair on fire, and say horrible things about people that are completely untrue, and sit in a seat on a platform of some sort of authority. Like, you can't do that. So yeah, unfortunately, I think that is part of our role. Mm-hmm.
You know, for someone that's a lawyer, that amazes me too. She's apparently, she claims to be a lawyer, so I'm going to take her at her word. And like, you don't know that this isn't inappropriate. You don't know that you have no legal protection when you're in the Senate like that. She does not have parliamentary privilege like MPs do. She has no protection against lawsuits whatsoever. I'm just throwing that out there to be considered. Anyway, you know what? Come to think of it, there's one more clip. If you really want to understand who Ms. Palmater or whatever her name is, if you really want to understand the level of person that the Senate will actually invite in to speak, here's a really good clip of her suggesting to senators, you may want to look at some way to not just vet somebody once for if they hold a firearms license, but to vet them almost continuously. Anyway, check the clip out.
We don't have an expansive enough kind of background check, and we don't do it at multiple stages, and it should be rechecked on an ongoing basis. Who someone was when they bought the gun to begin with could be very different 10 years later.
Right. So that means going back to people with a gun license, and doing these kinds of checks periodically. Okay. And
well, it's like she's asking for some sort of screening to see if somebody's still eligible. And you could do it continuously, like continuous eligibility screening, the thing that already literally exists. She goes in there like some kind of, I'm the professor and I'm here to give you some knowledge. And she's advocating for a system that literally already exists and is in place.
For 30 years. It's been in place for 30 years.
Yeah.
And everybody knows about it. I mean, when the CCFR came along 8 years ago, we took a lot of the issues and firearm regulation and gun laws and stuff that most Canadians knew nothing about. Basically everybody but a gun owner. Even most gun owners didn't know about this stuff. And we pushed it out to the forefront, right? Like, you and I together have probably done 500 or 600 mainstream media interviews in the last 8 years. And we talk about this stuff all the time so that people know that right now there are regulations around the ownership of handguns and rifles and shotguns and 22s and everything. I mean, anyone that has any peripheral contact with the firearms issue, much less be testifying in the Senate, would know all of this stuff, or at least most of it. And they certainly would know about continuous eligibility screening because we've talked about it endlessly.
Remember, if you don't stand up for your own ability to own and use firearms, who will? Join the CCFR or donate right now at www.firearmrights.ca.